Hi, welcome back to the Goalkeeping Podcast. I'm Paul Sherratt, and you'll notice this week that we're missing Martin Brennan, but it's okay. I found a great replacement. I got Matt Gould here, Althrincham FC goalkeeper and New Zealand squad member. So welcome to the Goalkeeping Podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm really looking forward to talking about goalkeeping and being part of the show.
I want to find out all about you. So here we are in this beautiful countryside. This is my club. You won't be able to see those of you on YouTube. We're sitting in the visitors' dugout at Chadlington Football Club. This is actually Jeremy Clarkson territory. So if you watch Diddley Farm, Diddley Squat, this is just behind us. So look it up later. But yeah, thanks for driving down today. You've obviously driven down from Althrincham, a couple of hours. Journey all right?
Yeah, it was fine. Only took 2.5 hours. Trained last night and just jumped in the car this morning.
I did promise you, I know, sunshine.
Yeah.
I know we're not quite there yet, but I'm hoping that in the next hour or so whilst we chat, maybe the sun will come out. But just wanted to spend some time learning about you and where you've come from, and obviously your family. You know, you've got a big heritage in sport and football in particular. So maybe we go right back to the start.
Yep.
Where you were born, where did you grow up? Give me a little bit of a feel for that.
So obviously with my dad playing professionally and my granddad being footballers.
Well, you should tell people who your dad and your granddad are.
Dad's Jonathan Gould, ex-Celtic and ex-Scotland international. Won Premier Leagues with Celtic and was a part of the 1998 World Cup squad with Scotland. And then granddad, Bobby Gould, did unbelievably well as a manager and a player. Played for Arsenal, Coventry, and then won the FA Cup with Wimbledon. Crazy gang. Which
of course everybody can remember. We'll remember that, and maybe we'll come on to that later. But were you?
I wasn't born
yet.
Yeah,
I was going to say. I was just
everyone after or before the 90s would probably remember it. But anyone after that would have to probably have watched highlights and videos. But yeah, no, look, it's a big legacy to live up to, but it's something that I'm very proud of.
It's brilliant. So you were born in the UK?
So yeah, born in Warwick. So dad was at Coventry at the time. So born in Coventry, then moved to Bradford for a year. Then moved up to Glasgow when Dad got his big move to Celtic, and we were there 5 to 6 years. So the whole family moved up, with mum and sisters included. Then moved back to Bristol when Dad went to Preston, and then at 11 moved to New Zealand.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, and while I was in Bristol, I was at Bristol Rovers for 2 years myself as a under 9 to an under 11.
So you were did you connect with the Celtic fan base then, or were you a little bit too young and was it really the Bristol fan base?
No, Celtic fan base. I'm Celtic through and through. My mum sometimes questions how big a Celtic fan I am, because I kind of sometimes go a bit over the top with it. But no, I'm a Celtic fan and always will be.
And still follow the team?
Follow the team, watch every game.
Do you really?
Yeah, girlfriend doesn't overly like it because I'm constantly watching Celtic. If they've got a game on a Tuesday night in Europe or Saturday, it's always Celtic first, then her second.
Fantastic. I love it. So we're in New Zealand, you're 11. Why the move to New Zealand out of interest?
So Dad did a year out there before he started his career, and just thought the place was amazing, loved everything about it, and said he'd want to bring his kids up there. So towards the end of his career, he'd said, right, Tom, Mum, right, we're going over there. We're going to try and live over there for a few years and see what ends. 10 years later, we were still there, and yeah, got to experience the different lives of the New Zealand people. And obviously, we spoke about you being there before we came on live. And what a beautiful country it is, and I just love the people there, and I became part of it.
Yeah, you aged me a little bit because you asked me if I'd been to New Zealand, and I went yeah, and then I realised it was 1993, which is nearly 30 years ago. So it's a long time before you were born. Thanks for reminding me about that. Yeah, that's brilliant. Brothers, sisters?
Yeah, so I've got a younger sister who's actually works for Celtic.
Okay.
She does the Celtic TV media for Celtic TV and does the women's side of it. And she was working for TalkSport. She's done very, very well to get to where she's been. So yeah, it was just the two of us, and we had to get on well because obviously you're moving away a lot and changing places, and you have to make new friends. So having that support network with your brother and sister and your mum and dad together, and we were a tight family unit. And at the time in New Zealand, it was probably just rising, and football was rising there. So we went at a good time, and you see what I think 2010 World Cup that New Zealand became unbeaten. We were unbeaten in the World Cup, and yeah, I think my family were a big part of New Zealand football in that stage.
So you really had no excuse but to become maybe involved in football, and maybe your sister was the same, or was it how was it forced, or did it just happen, or because I've talked to lots of athletes over the years and keepers that we have as endorsees, and some are pushed. You have to do it, and others, particularly if their parents or their father has been a high-profile keeper, are almost the opposite.
Yeah.
I don't want you to go in the game. Actually, I want you to form your own.
I don't think it was never forced upon me. I think everything Dad and Mum gave to me was a choice. There was a time where I thought cricket would have been my main option, because when I moved to New Zealand, cricket was bigger,
right?
And I was playing representative cricket, but I was always chucking myself around the living room. At the age of 3, my granddad threw a balloon. I chucked my head through a trophy cabinet.
So ouch. Still got the scar?
No, thankfully I just got back up and just started diving around again. I think I got removed out of that room for that day.
Yeah.
But look, when you've got that background in football, you're gonna somehow, if you fall in love with the game. And I've always been in love with the game, and even now I'll take footballs in the face to just to make saves, and I love goalkeeping.
So you played football at school, you played cricket at school?
Yeah, played football. So like I said, I mentioned, so I went to a school in Bristol, played all sports, rugby, football, cricket. Loved football and cricket more. Went to Bristol Rovers, did 2 years there, and then moved to New Zealand. And then kind of just at school I played outfield, and then in the rep teams I played in goal, so I had that balance where I was enjoying both.
Okay.
And then at 16, 17, when I decided to leave school, it was then make a decision, what do you want to do? Do you want to go down the football pathway, or do you want to go down the cricket pathway? And it was quite tough, but there was a lot of politics in cricket. So I thought, right, I'm better in goal than I am at cricket, so how far can I make it in football? And then from then on, it was just about coming back. What we did, we kind of made it more of an experience for me, rather than, so every year I come back to UK, go and train at a different club, and instead of trials, there's no pressure.
Yeah, nice.
Go and experience different environments and train with different goalkeepers and see where I need to be to come back and sign pro. So I went to Fleetwood at, I think it was 19, 20. Was pretty close to signing. I did really well, did a shoulder in the second week. They kept me on, but they knew what I needed to do to come back. So they said, look, come back in the year after, but put on a lot of weight, because I was only a skinny. I was really quite a late developer in my goalkeeping. So I went and weighed, did put on 10 kilograms, played in
Went away back to New Zealand? Or
went back to New Zealand.
Right, okay.
Yeah, played
to bulk yourself up.
Yeah, put on 10 kilograms, went into the top league in New Zealand, played 5 or 6 games, and then went to Australia for 6 months and played.
So just let me pick on that. That's an interesting one, because we'll have a lot of keepers, younger keepers, that are listening to the podcast, that are maybe in exactly that same position, where there may be a skinny teenager, they've got aspirations to become better as a goalkeeper, they need to put some weight on. Talk me through that bulking up process. What did you do? How did you change, or was it a natural evolution? You were maturing anyway, or what?
So I was probably close to my peak height, or they call it peak height velocity now.
What are you? How tall are you?
I'm just about 6'1".
Okay.
I like to, on FIFA. I've claimed I'm 6'3".
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you've got to massage the stats a little bit.
Exactly.
Haven't you?
Yeah. So if they want to use them stats, it's not me they're against. So I went home, and I still had a bit more growth after that anyway. But I just literally went on mass gainer protein, ate what I wanted to, was looking at 4,000 to 5,000 calories a day.
Wow.
And I had 2 cans of rice pudding a day of low fat. And
Love it.
I used to come into training at Hawke's Bay United, and I was after work, and I'd be scooping away at my ice cream. They go, "How many cans you had today? 2 or 3?" And then I did that for 6 to 8 months, and I kept it on, and I kept trying to do it until when I went to Australia. And there's a time where you have to stop trying to put on weight. But it was at that point I then came back to it. I actually lost quite a bit of it when I came back, but at least I put that mass on to try and put a bit of muscle on as well.
Weights as well, and all of that sort of stuff. So you're doing everything combined.
Yeah.
You obviously had a job. I guess you were part time. You're training in an evening.
Yeah. So at Hawke's Bay we trained twice a week. I was very lucky because I was always Dad was at Wellington Phoenix at the time in the A League, and I used to go and have week spells with them and go and be part of their academy group. So I was always kind of in and out of full-time football from the age of 15. But mainly when I was working, I went and worked at a gym when I was playing for Hawke's Bay, so I was working on reception.
Brilliant.
I loved it because I was just scanning people in. As you do as a young lad, you look at the people coming in.
I can imagine you're enjoying that.
Yeah. So, but then and it's literally the guy that worked as the personal trainer for Hawke's Bay United worked at the gym as well. So we used to do our work before work and go and do my weights and stuff, and it worked out well because it gave me a physique that I needed to cope with coming back to the UK.
And how hard, just rolling forward, how hard do you find that now? That process of keeping lean, keeping fit, keeping your correct weight?
I think as I've got, obviously as I've got older and more experienced, and it's only probably now that I'm realising what's actually best for my body in terms of my weights and in relation to how I play. So I'm at my best when I'm quick, I'm lean, but then that also has a little impact in when you're playing against people, or especially at the National League, you're playing against 6'4", 6'5". You also have to have a bit of weight behind you to take the hits and tackles. So coming and getting crosses, I've managed to find a balance now where I'm about, I don't know what weight I'm at, about 79, 80 kilograms, but I'm quick and I'm making saves. And it was only when I was on my New Zealand camp that I realised that this is what I need to do to be at my best. And so at 28, so in that time I've gone through my peaks and my troughs and player. And thankfully I always did my heavy weights at the start of the week, so that when I was playing at weekends I was always like in good condition. But when you're just training all the time and you're wanting to impress in training, it's hard to do it when you're doing weights and putting on weight.
I think that's right, and we've talked to a lot of keepers about this. That balance is it's a tricky one, isn't it? It's interesting. You're at 28 now.
28, yeah.
You're almost going through that process, which is fine because potentially you've got another 10 years in the position. So fine, evolve and learn over those next 10 years.
Yeah. And even like we talk about gym work, I now do, instead of doing 3 reps of 8, I will do more of a rehabilitation, or what's it called when you keep something going. 2 sets of 8 or 2 sets of 6, just so I've got that strength behind me, but I'm not overexerting myself.
How often do you do that? How often do you do weights a week then?
Well, ideally, I'd probably do Monday, Tuesday, and a Thursday morning. So what I'm now doing, I'm doing my upper bodies on a Monday. Yeah. I'll do a legs, double leg on Tuesday, and now I'm doing single leg stuff on a Thursday. Obviously, as you go older, you get little problems in your body that you have to try and tweak out and your rehab. So Thursday, that one-legged stuff's important to me because I feel like at times I need to be more powerful in my one-legged stuff than my two-legged stuff, because as a goalkeeper, that's all we use is one-legged stuff.
That's really good. So just rolling back again, so you come back, we're here, we're playing, we're Fleetwood. Just talk us through the next sort of few years and chapters and.
So Australia was interesting. Yeah, so I did 6 months. I went and played for a man called Lee Bamber at Armadale.
What age were you then?
20.
Okay.
So I did my Hawke's Bay stint, played 5 games, probably done better than they thought I would, but there was conflicts with older goalkeepers that I had. And we got to the playoffs, but at the time the Australian season was going to start, so I said to the manager, look, if I'm not going to play, can you let me go? And he goes, yes. So I went to Australia and played for the worst team in the league.
Okay.
But it was with one of my best mates. He came over with me, so he was a player, centre half, really good, talented player. So we went over together, and it was the worst season in terms of results. I've never been a part of a season like that. We got battered, but it was a good learning curve because I went through times where I picked up injuries, and it was about getting through them injuries and being mentally strong to get beat 6-0. I've got to go again. And yeah, it might not have been all my issue that I was losing 5 and 6-0, but it was just about being mentally strong to get through that year, that 6 months of playing, and I did every game.
Which presumably we don't need to go into the detail unless you want to, but you mentioned some conflict with senior players and so on and so forth. My guess is, and tell me if I'm wrong, that that's already knocked your confidence, maybe whatever the conflict was. You then go to Australia and the confidence at a really formative time in your career. That's tough.
It wasn't so much conflict with me and senior players. It was more conflict with people thinking that they should be playing over me. And at the time, we had a manager who was a really good manager, picked me to start with. Kind of got the manager had a couple of problems away from football, went away, and the assistant brought in the experienced goalkeeper. So I had to then wait for my turn, played a game, played really well against Auckland City. and then he came back in, and it was almost a case of that experience. And I understand it, because now being in the coach, you will bring you a more experienced goalkeeper in when you're trying to get to the top, unless especially if he's throwing and wobbly.
It's kind of nature of the beast, isn't it? I mean, and I guess it is maybe it's a good thing if you're learning that at a young age, because you said it's going to happen.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what level you're at. At some stage, somebody else is going to come in. Maybe it's at the end of your career, or even in the middle of your career, or even at the height of your career. Yeah. You know, somebody takes a different view and plays somebody else in a different game. So I think that's probably you learn resilience, I would guess.
Oh, 100%. I think it comes with the nature of the game at the moment with managers as well. Managers have got 1 year, if not less, to put on a show for the board and the fans. If they don't get it right, they're off. They get sacked.
Yeah.
And that's the modern game, unfortunately. Back 10, 15 years ago, people were getting 3-4 year contracts. They could put trust in the younger players, like Fergie did with the Man United group.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have been able to do that as much now, because look at them now.
I think it's fundamental. I mean, you look at the Arsenal squad. You look at Arteta. He could have easily been moved, pushed aside, gone 12, 18 months ago. Yeah. Bad run of games. This isn't good. The club's not. And here they are, maybe on the back into Champions League after 6-7 years. So for me, I subscribe to that, and I'm sure your father and your grandfather do that. You've got to have time. If I look at it from a business point of view, for me, it's a bit like saying I'm going to put a new chief exec into a business, but after 6 months he's really not doing a great job, so I'm going to replace him or her with another chief exec. Well, you haven't got time to even review everything that's happening in the organisation. Never mind put things in place to change it and build it. And so I think, I'm a big subscriber to the long-term view, but pressures around the game make it very difficult.
I think that comes back to young goalkeepers as well. Young goalkeepers need time to develop, and you look at Martinez is a perfect example of someone that's done so long at Arsenal, come into the first team at 28, 29, been brilliant, and then gone to Villa as a number one and been one of the best goalies in the league at times. And it's just that trust in young goalkeepers to give them that time and take them out when they need to, and then put them back in.
Martin and I have talked on this podcast about game time for young keepers, and we had the debate. Okay, option A, you sit on the bench as a number 2, maybe a number 3, and play no first team games or very few. Option B, you go out on loan and you get 50, 60 games under your belt at a lower league. Yeah. And he's the massive subscriber too. You have to go out, you have to play games to then be able to potentially come back at a different level, at a higher level. So it's interesting hearing you.
Well, that probably takes me to the next stage of where I went with. I came back after Australia, and I went to Cheltenham, and I signed after a week and a half trial.
Down the road from here, not that far actually.
I signed for Cheltenham, which was a club that my granddad had been a manager at.
Right.
So I went to Cheltenham, and that first year I had 4 managers, and I sat on the bench for 40 games, didn't get on. But the one bright spot I always take from that, and it was my first year of professional football, and I loved it. My loan spell, I went to Bishop's Cleeve in, I don't know what league it was, and played 6 games, helped them turn around the fall because they were at the bottom of the league. They'd only won 1 game, we won 3 and drew 1 out of 6. And that was my favourite part of that season, being in that environment, because I knew that I was there to play. I'd got my games and then went back to Cheltenham, a different goal, again, confident. And unfortunately, things didn't work out for me at Cheltenham because of the manager situation. And 4 managers in your first professional season is never going to work for you, because you're always going to be under pressure when the next manager comes in. They're always going to be looking to bring their own players in. And at that time, I probably didn't realise that I should have gone in, probably come out of full-time football, but you always want to stay in the full-time game.
I think that's the hard decision. Again, going back to that point, you can stay in full-time football but not play many games. Yeah. Or as you say, you drop down, you do part-time, and you are playing every single game. Yeah. I think I get it. That's a really tough decision. Yeah. But probably it's, depending on who you are and what kind of keeper you are, maybe it's the right decision. I
think it's more about, if you are going to be in that full-time environment, making sure there is some sort of games program there for you, so you're experienced in things all the time. So if you have to say to the manager, I want to play every Wednesday in a reserve team, or go and play on a Friday night before a Saturday game, just so you got that games and that experience, because you won't learn anything else than being from just training. Yeah. You'll get into a pattern where you just train for the sake of training, and you've got nothing to be excited about at the end of the week. Where the most important part about training is building up to that exciting part.
Completely,
Yeah.
completely. How's the family name?
Yeah.
A burden or an advantage, or depending on where you're at, has it ever come into play again? Actually, there's some negativity here because there's an assumption that I'm here because of.
No, yeah, I think there's always positive parts, like the name will help you get into certain clubs to trial, but when you're at that club, you've then got to perform and make it your own way. So when I was at Cheltenham, my granddad knew the manager, but then I had to go and trial and be really good in the trial to get the contract. Otherwise, they wouldn't have given it.
Yeah.
But then I've had another side. When I was at Cheltenham, a manager came in and was saying, why can't get your granddad in to take me and teach me some sessions in sarcastic ways, and would call me Bobby Gould.
Yeah, you're only here because of your granddad, particularly because he was at the club prior to you as well.
And he'd just come in. He didn't know who I was. Didn't want to get to know me because I was a young goalkeeper.
Yeah. And
that's probably why he didn't last very long at the club, because he wasn't that sort of personable person that you can come and talk to and say, right, well, nice to meet you. Let me learn about you. And that's what all that people ask for is respect and having that personal skills. And unfortunately, at times there's not overly much about it in the game nowadays.
Yeah.
Again, because of that pressure and that people wanting the best players in and saying, right, you've been good for 3 games, but there's people out there that are better than you. They come in for 3 games and they realise actually they're not better than you. So in that regard, there is, especially when I went up to Livingston.
That was after Cheltenham. You then moved. How old are you then?
So 21.
Okay.
So I went up. I enjoyed it my summer with my mates, and then I went up to Livingston, and I was on trial 4 weeks at Livingston.
Okay.
First week had a really good week. They said, look, we're looking to give you something. Went into it. Kept a clean sheet in the game. They then came to me and goes, actually, the board don't think you're tall enough.
All right.
The board.
Were they going by your FIFA stats or
No.
your real stats?
No, they were going by someone that had never played the game and never been to watch me train.
Yeah, because 6'1". Again, we've had this discussion. I think we Googled it, and the average age in the Premiership. Actually, Steve, what was it? 6'2", was it? Yeah. I think it was 6 foot. So
it's not far away.
You're there, aren't you?
Yeah. And maybe it was because I'd lost a bit of weight and my stature wasn't as where I am probably now, and you don't have that presence as a younger lad. But for some reason he said to the manager, and the manager wanted to sign me. Came up to me and said, look, I won't offer you a deal, but at the moment they're stopping me. So I went to Cowden Beef on trial whilst training with Livingston during the day.
Right.
Kept a clean sheet in the Cowden Beef game. They decided to take the older goalkeeper, but my training levels then gone up again at Livingston. They came back to me, and I kind of made a foolish comment to the goalkeeping coach. I said I would take 100 quid a week to stay here. And
another mistake learned.
Yeah, and they came to me with a contract on 100 quid a week.
Ouch.
Yes, there was things in there that they said they'd help me, and again, the manager was really good. Mark Birch and the goalkeeping coach were really good. Dave Hopkin, excellent. But the board said they'd help me. For the first 3 months, I lived in a caravan on the side of my friend's house, and they were brilliant with me. So, but it got Scottish weather; it's freezing cold, and it's not good for you can't play football, be a professional football on £100 a week, living like eating chicken every day,
Absolutely.
rice. It's just you may as well. And I lost 4 over that spell. I lost 4 kilograms.
Wow.
And I looked unwell.
And mentally tough. Everything's just tough, isn't it?
Yeah. I was relying on people to try and get me through the time rather than actually thinking standing on my own 2 feet. So at the time I had friends in Glasgow, and I'd go and stay with them 3 times a week just to have electricity and heating.
Yeah.
Because I ended up moving into a flat with one of the other players, and we chose internet over heating.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Because we were there on our own. We wanted something to do during the day, so we watched Netflix and had our internet instead of having actually heating.
And a few extra layers of clothes and a couple of blankets.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was a learning curve in itself. And when the time was to give me an opportunity, they then again the manager got sacked. Board member took over, said, right, we're bringing in the goalkeeper, and I went out on loan to Stenhousemuir.
Okay.
And again, loan move was the best part about being there, because I went and played 7 games, learnt about Scottish League 1 football, and adapted quite quickly and did a good job. And then it all changed again, because I got a phone call from my dad saying, look, Stourbridge want you in the Northern Premier League. I've told you all about. They wanted a West Brom goalkeeper initially, but the old man didn't have any at the time. So he goes, look, I've got one that's been not playing at Livingston. Would you like him? And it turned out to be the best move I ever made.
Brilliant.
Go to Stourbridge, but it was the fact that I had a girlfriend at the time, and I was planning everything on the 6th. On the 7th of January, which was my birthday, funny enough, I had my little Mercedes A-Class packed up with everything that I owned.
Wow.
I had to say, look, I've got to go and try and make it work. It didn't work, but it was because Livingston didn't pick up the phone when Stenhousemuir didn't want to Stenhousemuir wanted to extend my loan, and Livingston didn't pick up the phone in time. So again, it's about people and how you're treated.
It's amazing, huh?
Yeah. So it's good. Again, these learning curves that make you stronger.
Yeah.
And then I moved down to Stourbridge, and best move of my life.
Because?
People. I went and played nearly 150 games on the bounce. We had a manager that put trust in me from day one. I went into a team that had experienced lads that obviously had been in the full-time game and come out, and they gave me everything they had, and helped me learn, and it made me stand on my own 2 feet. I remember a time where, second to last game of the season, we had this big striker called Carl Hawley, and he won't mind me saying because we get on well. But he was having a pop at me about my kicking, and bear in mind I kicked everything onto the left winger's head, and he should have won every header. But at half time, the centre half stood up. The striker said, "Why aren't you kicking properly? Why don't you kick to the strikers?" I go, apart from him, none of you have. Apart from him, none of you have won any bloody headers anyway.
Yeah.
I was going to swear at them.
Yeah.
Any of you won any headers anyway? And he literally stood up, and he's this massive. Carl's a big, strong boy, and he nearly put me through the wall. But I stood on my 2 feet, and everyone pushed him back down. But again, I think that was part of my learning curve of being in a men's football and going, right, yeah, he can handle being in this environment.
Yeah.
And stick up for himself.
Great. So what age are you there then? Where are we at now?
So 20, just turned 22.
22 in Stourbridge. We're happy.
Stourbridge.
Football's good. We're playing regular, playing every game.
Yeah.
Learning.
Yeah. So I did the end of my loan spell. Livingston wanted to finish my contract. I said no because I don't want to be released 6 months into a contract. I'll see out my contract, but I want to go on loan. So that was what happened. Went to Stourbridge. Then at the end of the season, Stourbridge said, right, we want to sign you. And Gary Hackett was the manager at the time, who used to play for West Brom, and John Ford, who was at Bradford with my dad. I became part of. I moved. My dad was at West Brom, so it kind of made it easy. So I trained with West Brom full time, and then played for Stourbridge.
Fantastic.
And over that season, we then played 59 games, and we had a FA Cup run to the third round of the FA Cup. We beat Northampton on the way. Got beat by Wickham in the last minute by a Akinfenwa header, but it was an incredible experience, and we got to the playoff final as well. So then I did my second year, and then we moved on again.
Fantastic. I just love this whole story. This. I mean, it just makes you realise. And again, people, listeners to this, you realise that how important the people thing is. What a roundabout, what a carousel this football world is. You know, there's 4 managers in a season, and really hard to get to know the senior staff, because you know the manager goes and probably the staff follow, and to navigate that is challenging, huh?
Oh yeah, it's hard, and non-league football is hard, and you then the part I found difficult at first with non-league football was adapting to seeing people go to work and then go and playing.
Yeah.
And it wasn't them that had to adapt. It was me having to adapt to going, right, I've got to give them leeway. Yeah, they might not do everything professional like I've been doing my whole life to get there, but they still love football, and they still want to win at weekends. So I've got to adapt myself into, I can have my processes of how I prepare, and that will never change. But I've got to think about how everyone else prepares, and not maybe get myself caught up in the moment and caught up with how other people play the game.
And what were your aspirations at 22? You're at Stourbridge. What was the dream?
Go back into full-time football. but I knew that coming out, I needed to have that now, go and experience playing football like we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
And build up a portfolio of football games to build up myself back into National League and then hopefully League football someday.
And the opportunity came?
So I did another year at Stourbridge, and it wasn't overly easy that second year at Stourbridge. I again played most of the games, but there was a little patch where the dad had moved on, so I was on my own in Birmingham, trying to adapt to change of environments, not training every day with West Brom, because I was very fortunate because Tony Pulis allowed me to train with the first team every day at West Brom. And yeah, I flitted in and out with the first team, the 23s, with Mark Naylor, who's a fantastic, I don't know if you know Mark Naylor, he's at Villa now, he's one of the best coaches I've ever worked with. And he used to get me prepared on a Friday so that I didn't interrupt the goalies with the first team on a Friday, so that I was already ready and all these other goalies were ready that were going out on loan. So after that, I had a bit of interest from Hartlepool, went up there on trial. Again, at the time, Hartlepool were going for a bit of a rut, so it was that trying to get fit into that full-time environment. I didn't want to go as a number 2. I wanted to go into play.
Yeah, because you'd be playing
yeah.
full-time. Yeah,
it didn't make sense to go there. So I stayed at Stourbridge, and did another year. Yeah, weren't as successful, and there was times where I was my form wasn't indifferent, but there was probably the year before I had a better year. And then I had a phone call from Spennymoor. My dad had moved up to Middlesbrough, and Spennymoor manager rang him up and said, "Oh, your son's...
What's your boy doing?"
Yeah, what's your boy doing? I played 3 times against them and probably got man of the match all 3 times. So he took me on and signed me. So then I spent my next bit of time at Spennymoor and did 88 games on the bounce for them up until COVID.
Wow. So you were getting some proper game time in then, really?
Yeah, so at 25, I then was up to 250 games.
Yeah.
And yeah, I could have probably gone back into a League 2 club as a number 2. But my Spennymoor experience was brilliant because, again, you're going in a bit more mature, knowing what them lads are like at Spennymoor. Kind of had been told that there were a different breed of players from Newcastle and Sunderland, a bit more intense and mad about football. Northerners, aren't they?
Totally. Yeah.
And I jumped in between 2 of the main players that were the big characters, and that helped me because you go into a new environment, come from a league below, and you've got to perform. And what had happened previous is they brought goalkeepers in that didn't live up to the level that they were expected of. But I went in there, just was myself, tried to show how professional I was. Trained with Middlesbrough again full time, which helped me. And did 2 years there, and we got to a playoff final again. Got beat on penalties, and then I did the second year, and unfortunately, the second year again, we come back to the trust and the people. I don't think I was probably appreciated by certain people as much as I should have been, considering I'd kept 20 clean sheets in 50 games the previous year, and then it came to an end just before COVID, and between me and the manager, we went our separate ways, and moved on to try and find another club.
And COVID, how was that for you?
Interesting. I bought gym equipment. I just did everything I could I was going out running like everyone else was.
Keep yourself fit,
keep myself
mentally,
fit.
Physically in the right place, ready to go again.
I probably needed a little break from football anyway, to be honest.
Yeah.
Just to realign. And then I rang up the Althrincham manager and said, "Look, are you interested in having me? I've done all my badges as well on the side of it."
Okay.
And I'll allude to that. I may as well allude to that now. So
yeah, when did you do your badges?
During my time at Spennymoor, I jumped on UEFA B goalkeeping.
Brilliant.
And UEFA B outfield when I was with the Middlesbrough players that were doing it. So I had that as a backup, and it was something that I was always interested in doing anyway. So I did that. So I said to the manager, "I've got my B licence goalkeeping. I've done a lot of coaching." I went into Hartlepool and trained full time in the second year at Spennymoor, and kind of shadowed Ross Turnbull, the goalkeeping coach there. He played for Chelsea.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was good. And he said, "Yeah, come in and fight for your number 1 spot and see what you can do and help coach."
Okay. So we're almost sort of present day. So
yeah.
You hit my radar. I'm reading this BBC News article.
Yeah.
there's this Gould headline everybody knows. We know the family history, and there's this Matt Gould that's been called up for the New Zealand squad.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the whole. We obviously New Zealand's been in the narrative. We've talked about that earlier on, how you love the country and you grew up there effectively. And talk me through that whole. I'm fascinated by that whole process. How did it happen? That whole world of where we are now. So we are, I don't know, the 12th, middle of May.
Yeah.
You may or may not be called up to the. There's one game away from the World Cup. Talk to me about that journey.
Okay, so I was involved in New Zealand under-17s. Went to Qatar with them. It's funny how 10 years later I was back in Qatar with them.
Yeah.
Went away. Didn't get picked up for the World Cup squad, which I was disappointed about. But if you seen me at 17, again, we're talking about your maturity levels. I was probably a 15-year-old in a 17-year-old's. 17-year-old in a 15-year-old's body. Wasn't ready to play, go to a World Cup. So again, 20s came round. Was more ready. Was close to getting in the squad. Out for 8 months with a groin injury. So that kind of killed that chance. I nearly still snuck in. And then over the last probably 6 years, while I was full time at Cheltenham and Livingston, I always thought, why aren't I being considered? Because there's other goalies that are being considered where, they're
not at your level. Do you think?
I'm a professional footballer here.
Yeah.
Why can't I still be looked at? But I don't know what it was. Maybe again, it might have been part of certain people in Wellington, in New Zealand, didn't find the name fitted. Then comes around, so I've gone and done all my games, 250 games or whatever it was, signed for Althrincham, and then over the last couple of months I've been out on loan at Nantwich, and my name was always on the radar, and I'm still at a level where I've played my games, and Althrincham is a good club in a league that's a really impressive league at the moment with Stockport and Wrexham.
Yeah.
And the goalkeeper, one of the goalkeepers got COVID, and I was brought into the mix.
Email, phone call, out of the blue, text. What was that?
So it was a phone call. So my old man's part of the coaching staff, and again, people will think, oh, that's the only reason you're in there. But he rang me up and goes, look, I've put everything towards the gaffer, Danny. Put your clips in. I've sent all reports on you, reports on everyone else. He wants you to be a part of the squad and call you up. He said you're the next in line. He goes, it's not to do with me. This is Danny's call. So Danny called me up, and then I was part of a squad that played against. We played against. I think it was Bahrain? I can't even remember. Jordan was the first one in Qatar. So, and obviously I've done a good job, and while I've been away, and was involved in the qualifiers, which was an incredible experience. I'm just sitting there and playing phone games with Chris Wood, that's next to me, who's just signed for Newcastle on a certain amount of money, and Winston Reid the other side over there, and it's just amazing to be part of this squad of really talented players. And I think the nice part about this New Zealand squad is, like, I didn't know many of them. I've come across them, but I've got friends that are friends with these people and these great lads. So straight away you've got things in common.
You're straight in there,
Yeah, and you talk to people and you get to learn their backgrounds. And in New Zealand, you either play for Wellington Phoenix, which is the professional football club, and we've all been part of like being involved in that, but either not getting contracts or had to move on, or you go and you have to move away from your family and go and experience it, and that's why.
And move away from the country,
move away. Yeah, exactly. So all these lads, and one of the lads, Francis, has gone away to the Swedish third division and made his way up the leagues, and is also now an all-white, and is doing really well, and is playing in the Swedish top division.
Fantastic.
So we've all got similar backgrounds, and I think that's part of the culture that Danny's setting up, and it was humbling to be a part of, because we've got all this culture around Maori traditions, and it's fantastic to be involved in.
That's great, and congratulations for that.
Thank
and
you.
It's great from a Glove Glue perspective, personally, to have you involved with the brand and start of a new chapter. Do you think, or how would you hope, sitting here today, how do you hope the next few years in the career, 5 years, let's say, how does it pan out from here?
Well, if look at the way at Althrincham, I love being at Althrincham. I haven't probably got the game time that I wanted to get in terms of being number one, but I've also learnt a lot about myself as a goalkeeping coach. I'm coach Tony Thompson probably had his best year in football last year, and I can be proud to say that I helped him in that.
Yeah.
I think part of that was being trustworthy and also straight with certain things. So the gaffer would ask me questions, and instead of throwing Tony in the bus because I wanted to play, I'd almost stick up for Tony, but it would affect my playing ability. And there was a time against Barnet where, what was Barnet? We played someone at home, Woking at home, and Tony had probably the worst warm up he'd had it all summer. I was in my mind of going,
this is not happening.
No, do I leave him to it?
Yeah.
And potentially play next week, or do I try and get him through his warm-up and help him? So I decided, right, team first, helped him. He had a worldie, absolute worldie. I wasn't going to play for the next 3 or 4 weeks after that, because he then found his form again, and he was brilliant for the rest of the season and got player as player. But this year's been slightly different because I've played more football. I got a little run in the team. Did well. Tony came back from injury, played, but then I went to Nantwich on loan to get my games in.
Yeah, like we talked about before, important to get the games in.
So I'm not being stagnant. I've gone away from Nantwich, gone and played 21 games, helped keep them up, and we ended up finished 13th, which was incredible considering where we were. But that's also allowed me to be in contention for the New Zealand squad because I'm playing football. But I'm also at a level with National League, which is better than most levels.
Yeah.
So
10 years' time, no, let's say 20 years' time,
yeah.
leading a team out, FA Cup final, could you ever see yourself in in a management role? Could you ever see you following, if you like, the family tradition there, or are you a coach, or are you a player, or how does it, where does it go?
Initially asking you a question before, I'm a player.
Yeah.
First of all, I'm a player. Got ambitions to play Football League. Got ambitions to play for New Zealand and be involved in every squad that I can possibly be involved in. I said
potentially this World Cup and at least another World Cup.
Oh,
maybe there's 3 World Cups in you.
Yeah,
maybe.
I'm going for the 36 one.
Yeah,
as well.
absolutely.
Okay,
yeah,
so we're not going to rule them out. So straight line, I want to play for the next 10 years. I want to get another 400 or 500 appearances under my belt. Yes, I might have to find ways to do it if I'm depending on my situation. But on the side of it, I've got my Wigan coaching. I'm PDP coach at Wigan, and I've absolutely loved it. Again, things change in football, so that you just don't know what's going to happen in terms of Althrincham going full time, staying at Wigan. 10 years down the line, I've got to do all my goalkeeping. I've got to go through the process of my goalkeeping coaching, going up to a certain level. But I want to be a manager. I think that's my ambition down the line, is to either be a brilliant Premier League first team goalkeeping coach, or go through the stages as a manager, because I love coaching. I enjoy doing the sessions. I enjoy dealing with people. I think, and this comes through what I've learned, is again, you've got to be straight with people. And I think when I'm a manager, that's something that I'd be good at, as long as I've got a good assistant next to me that can be back.
I'll hold your hand to help you. Yeah. It's an absolutely fascinating journey. I wish you all the best for the next short stage in this chapter, however it pans out through the rest of this year and beyond.
Oh, it's a chapter that we're going to go through together now.
Well, and looking forward to it. It's, let's have some fun along the way.
Yeah.
I hope that our listeners have really taken some nuggets from this as well about resilience, about change is going to happen. If you want to progress as a professional footballer, change is going to happen. You've got to adapt to those change. You go back, you put some weight on, or you change clubs, you go out on loan, whatever it is. You've just got to keep that dream alive.
The other thing I'd say on that as well, there's a lot of people that have put a lot of effort and sacrifice into getting me to where I am, in terms of families looking after me. My girlfriend now having to move from her job to Manchester to support me. Their families, my family, giving everything they possibly can to live my dream, and I can't thank them people enough, really, because they're the people that you actually want to do it for.
Absolutely.
And that's always said. And something I mentioned with New Zealand, the teacher messaged me when I first got into the New Zealand squad and said, when you were 13, Matt, I said to you, what do you want to be? You said professional footballer and play for All Whites. And I said that to him. And he kind of laughed at me. And he goes, he texted me going, you always told me that was your case, so I'm really proud of you. And that was something that was very humbling. And I said that to the New Zealand lads when we sat down. I said, that's, and I was quite emotional with it because it's an upsetting kind of, I did what I set out to achieve. Yeah, I've got so many more goals to achieve, but that was the one.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
That's a great place to finish. Thanks, Matt Gould, for joining us. That was the Goalkeeping Podcast. I hope you've enjoyed the content. If you'd like to become a better goalkeeper, then check out developinggoalkeeping.com, where you'll find podcasts, tips, videos, and more.